How's it going, guys? It's Crazy Boy here, and welcome back to another video. Today, guys, the devs have made comments about the new chapter, Demise of the Faithful. So, what you guys are going to see is me voicing over whatever gameplay I had that was long enough, because I don't know how long this video is going to run me. We're going to touch over everything. Talking everything. Lore, maps, perks, power, everything. But considering it is a review of the new chapter, I think we should watch the trailer first. So let's go ahead and do that. So, as you guys could see, the chapter is Demise of the Faithful. Demise of the Faithful, English. New survivor is Jane Romero. New killer is the Plague. And the new map is the Temple of Purgation. So, some of you might be wondering, some of you who have been in this game for a while automatically know something's not right here. There's two female characters. There's a female survivor. I'm going to adjust my camera real quick. And there's a female killer. Which the last time they did that, correct me if I'm wrong, was The Last Breath with the nurse and Nia. So that's pretty significant. But, anyways, I just want to say before we start, all of this has come directly from the dev stream. This has come directly from the dev stream. This is not made up. It's not leaked. None of this bullshit. It is directly stated by the developers in their dev stream. I don't have pictures to go along with what I'm showing you guys, but if you want pictures, you'll go to the dev stream. So, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started on the killer. We're going to start out with the killer's lore. So, the killer, we don't know, I don't know her real name. I'm pretty sure they didn't disclose that. So we're just going to call, and if they did, I missed it. So we're just going to call her the Plague. So the Plague grew up in a small town, and this is also set in Egypt, I'm pretty sure, so keep in mind, or it's during the medieval times somewhere, when the Plague was a thing. And she was growing up in a town of, you know, like a small town of people of residency, and they were a very religious town. And there was this person called the High Priestess, which is in control of, you know, all the ceremonies and everything. When the Plague broke loose, the High Priestess fell ill with the Plague, and so the killer, the Plague, took her place. Eventually, when the Plague started spreading, the Plague and all of her followers ended up getting sick with that Plague, and they went on a journey to get away from the city in hopes that it would help. Eventually, all of her followers died of the Plague, and she became ill herself and was about to die. And right before she died, her final words were a prayer to God, and instead of the gods answering her prayer, the entity answered it instead. And that's why she's in the realm of the entity. Moving on to the map. The entity copied and recreated the Plague's memories. The temple from the Plague's past has been recreated and put in the Red Forest, giving it a second variation, which means that we no longer have just a Mother's Dwelling variation of the Red Forest. We now have a different one. We have the Temple of Purgatory, which I'm kind of excited to see because Red Forest is actually a very interesting map. So I am definitely excited to see another variation of that. So the temple features multiple levels, including a crypt. If you don't know what a crypt is, it's like the basement area of the temple. And so because of this multiple floors, balanced landing is going to be pretty much essential on this new map. If you're going to have an exhaustion perk, you're probably going to want to run balanced landing as your exhaustion perk. As far as the map layout, we're not too sure of. All we know is there's going to be a generator in the crypt, and once powered, it will open other doors in the temple, which allows new areas of the map to be traversed quicker and introducing just new gameplay overall. Other smaller temples and structures will also be present throughout, so you will see some other smaller things, but not a lot. The killer's power is Vile Purge. So, the plague will vomit on survivors to infect them, and survivors' infections will continue to grow worse over time, and it will grow worse by exerting yourself, so by doing things such as running, or performing actions such as generators, and I assume healing. And the killer can also vomit on objects such as pallets. That way any survivor who touches that pallet or vaults over the pallet will become infected without the killer having to touch them. So that is pretty cool. So you get to pick kind of what you want to use it on. Survivors can only cure themselves through one way, which is the Pool of Devotion, or otherwise known as fountains. And after they cure themselves, when they cure themselves, it will also heal them. So if they're injured, it'll heal them back to healthy, which is kind of important. And you might be thinking this seems too easy, but after its use, it becomes corrupted. Corrupted fountains can be used to give the killer their corrupted purge, which harms survivors. So it's like the Vile Purge, but it inflicts damage now. And she can put that on pallets. So let's say you're healthy, but you need a pallet so you can't to avoid taking a hit. You either choose to go through that pallet. Say if it's node or something, you either choose to go through that pallet and take the injured, or you choose to let them hit you and down you with node. So it can be very, very useful, depending on how you use it. So you ultimately get to decide between whether you want the killer to have their power, or you want to deal with the sickness, which is definitely annoying. And from what I've seen, I'm not too sure what the sickness does to survivors, but I have an idea based off the community that we're going to touch on later that might not be physically possible. I don't know, though, because the devs haven't directly came out and said it. So it's just, I guess, where somebody pulled from somewhere. That's the only thing that's not 100% guaranteed. You guys will be happy to know that after Legion, this killer does move at regular speed, and she is only slowed when she's charging her power, similar to Huntress, but once she is done charging and she's holding her power, she moves again at regular speed. So here's what the sickness does based off of the comments from the community. The sickness triggers a timer that will kill you when it expires, similar to Pig's bear traps, so you have to heal in time. And I assume running and working on gens will speed up the timer since it makes the sickness worse. However, like I said, we're not fully sure, so it's just an estimate. Do not take that part to heart. So now we're moving on to the killer's perks. Dark Devotion. You become obsessed with one survivor, so it's an obsession perk, which is interesting. Especially with the new decisive changes coming. When hitting the obsession with a basic attack, they will emit a 32-meter terror radius that all survivors, including themselves, will hear for a couple of seconds. During this time, your terror radius is reduced to 0, and this perk has a cooldown before it can be triggered again. Your terror radius will also carry all effects for other perks, so I assume like Overwhelming and Unnerving and all that. So let's say a survivor gets hit, they're carrying your terror radius, say you had Overwhelming, you go to a gen where somebody is using a toolbox, that toolbox will degrade with the Overwhelming. Which is amazing. Nia can officially have a terror radius and be considered our killer. Warning, Dr. Bill's inbound, because that's what that perk is going to be used for 100%. Her second perk is Infectious Fright. Upon downing a survivor, all of the survivors within your terror radius will scream, revealing their position for a couple seconds. I also want to keep in mind, guys, anytime I say a couple seconds, the devs did not disclose exactly how long, and they said we will get the real times later. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that for you guys. So that perk seems pretty useful if you're going for a slugging build. Definitely something you want to consider. For the last perk, we have Corrupt Intervention, which is such a brilliant idea. Upon starting the trial, the 3 generators furthest from you will be blocked by the entity for a few seconds. Or, not a few seconds, but for a certain duration of time. I'm pretty sure it's longer than a few seconds. Survivors are unable to work on the gens for the duration. And pretty much what this does is it gives you less gens to patrol at the start. So you can either wait for that gen to become unblocked by the entity, or you can move closer to where the killer is. It's kind of the thing that puts pressure on the survivors. That does it for the killer perks. So the survivor, her name is Jane Romero, as I stated earlier. So, Jane Romero, we're going to start with her lore. Jane Romero always wanted to be the host of her own TV show. Not many people supported her on this, but that didn't stop her, and she fought day and night to get what she wanted. Eventually, she got her own TV show, but even afterwards, it was not easy to live her life. One night, she did an interview that turned out rather catastrophic, and on her way home, upon leaving the studio, the stress and drowsiness got to her, and she fell asleep at the wheel and caused her to crash into the river. After this, she disappeared and was never seen again. This is when the entity took her into their world, and how she pretty much died. The survivor perks. The first perk we have Solidarity. When healing another survivor, you will also heal yourself at a certain conversion rate. Currently, it is 50%. I assume this is tier 3 of the perk, so you need to have a tier 3 for it to be 50%. And pretty much what this means is whenever you heal another survivor with this perk, you will also heal yourself you will also heal yourself halfway, pretty much. So, this could be very beneficial. The second perk is Poised. This perk is pretty underwhelming, but that's to be expected. There's always something that's got to be underwhelming in what's going to be probably an amazing chapter to come. Because I will tell you guys, I am definitely looking forward to this chapter. It definitely seems 10 times better than Legion. 10 times better. I will be buying it the second it comes out. Poised. Upon completing a generator, no scratch marks are left for 10 seconds. So this perk could be used to help you get away from a generator. So you pop it, say the killer was close, but not like directly next to you. So you take off in a direction. That's it. That's the end of that. You're not bleeding. Killer probably isn't going to find you. This is going to be a very, very, very annoying perk. Because stealth, the killer pretty much relies on you to run. I disconnected from a match actually the other day because the survivors weren't running, and that made it impossible to find them. And I ended up losing that game. There was only one gen left. I hadn't found anybody, so I just disconnected. And for our final perk, we have Head On. After being in a locker for 3 seconds, the perk activates. When within range, performing a rush action out of a locker will stun the killer for 3 seconds. This causes the exhaustion status effect, and this perk cannot be used while exhausted. This is another exhaustion perk, so you want to keep in mind. So the only thing you really, really want to consider with this is your locker exhaustion perk, but it's not going to be used instantly. So if you guys have a killer on your tail, don't expect to jump in a locker and jump out and stun them. You got to be in the locker for 3 seconds. So the lockers are still not a save. But the perk's not too overpowered because from what I understand, the range is going to be pretty short. But this will definitely make killers not stand at the locker anymore and taunt you. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So, that's all I really have on the patch notes. All I'm going to say is that I do think the killer perks are better than the survivor perks just by a teeny tiny little bit. But this chapter seems to be fucking amazing. I am in love with the idea for this chapter. Once we learn what the sickness does, I'll make a video confirming or denying it. and I'll make a separate video on that. And the last thing I want to talk about is all this will be playable on the PTB, which will release sometimes this week, and the Decisive Strike changes will also be live on that PTB. So if you're on PC, make sure you guys go ahead and play that, and you let me know how it is, because I definitely want to know what it's like in the PTB. I want to know how the killer kind of plays out. But it seems like a rather good idea. I do want to know how many fountains there are. There's going to be like multiple scattered throughout the map, because like obviously once one becomes corrupted, I don't think we're going to be able to use it again. And if you wonder, will the fountains like ores be shown to you? Who knows? But this is all the devs have given us. But it's still rather interesting. So I can't let this video drag on too much longer, because I do have to put my perk roulette together. I'm already on a tight schedule as it is. Got to get 3 videos up today. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. Let me know what you guys think of the rework. Let me know what you guys think of this chapter in general. And if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Trying to find my way back home to you.